The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're just going to wait a minute or two to get more attendees on the line, and then we'll begin. All right, hi everyone. Welcome to the Sonny's Direct webinar. My name is Megan. I will be your moderator today. Thank you for joining us. So this webinar is being put on by SAP Hybris, Sonny's Direct, and Zaylab. So first, we're going to just run through the webinar objectives today and what the agenda is going to look like. So we're going to discover how to leverage SAP Hybris to deliver personalized customer experiences and streamline digital operations. Then we're going to learn about how Sonny's Direct, the leader of tunnel equipment in the world since 1950, transformed their digital B2B e-commerce experience in just 6 months. And then finally, we're going to see how Zaylab's continuous delivery allows your digital commerce solution to get to market faster and increase profitability. So let's introduce our panelists.
All right. Well, thank you, Megan, and thank you everyone for taking time out from your busy day to attend this session. My name is Dean Afzal, and I'm the Global Director for B2B Industry Marketing at SAP Hybris. I've been in the high-tech sector for about 15 years in different roles, from running PMOs to building software products to doing business development and now marketing. SAP Hybris represents the connected front office of SAP. And this includes commerce, marketing, sales, service, and billing. So basically everything that you need to deliver a seamless customer experience to your install base and to prospects. So in today's webinar, I wanted to share with you some best practices around a framework for digital transformation, which is relevant to companies of all sizes, especially SMB, but also general business and large enterprise. So with that, I'm just going to jump right in. So it's not the strongest or the most intelligent that will survive, but those who can best manage change. And the question here is that why just survive? Why not lead the change? And if we were to categorize the change, we could categorize it in three main pillars. So consumers have changed, companies have changed, and industries have changed as a whole. Now, with consumers, we don't really have to look too far, even if we look at ourselves. We are hyper-connected, our threshold for bad experiences is very low, and we are very aware of our options, and we're mostly online. You can just imagine yourself leaving for work and forgetting your phone at home. You'd probably turn back around to get your phone. That's how connected we are. Now, when we talk about companies like eBay and Amazon and Alibaba, Airbnb, these are digitally native companies. Every decision they make is data-driven. And today's B2B organizations, these are the companies that they're competing against. So things have changed and have become much more challenging. Now, industries as a whole are moving from traditional supplier to more of a turnkey solution provider role by bundling products and add-on services using digital. And we're going to get into much more details across all three of these as we move forward. Before I get into the framework, I wanted to share some macro trends with you within the B2B space. Bear with me just 1 second. Okay, I'm having problems with moving forward here. There we go. Okay, so our customers are connected all the time. So about 84% of smartphone and tablet owners say they have used their devices as second screens while watching TV at the same time. So hyper connectivity. 87% of smartphone and tablet owners have used their mobile devices for shopping activities, not only for purchase, but the research that leads up to that purchase. And our customers have very high standards. 86% of customers are willing to pay more for a better experience. And, our B2B customers are requesting self-service, about 62%. Now, what's interesting here is that if you were to take new talent or the new generation or millennials, this exponentially blows up and goes into the 90s because they want to do everything self-service. This is very interesting research that we did with Forrester. 98% of purchases that are made offline are researched online. And what's interesting with these stats is that, customers are not coming specifically to your website. They're going to consumer marketplaces, they're going to search engines, and they're going to business marketplaces. And what's critical, the critical takeaway here is that your content needs to be across every touch point where your customers are. Because if it's not there, somebody will take that business from you. And the changing B2B customer, 59% don't want to interact with a sales rep. And 57% are well on their way towards making a purchase decision before even reaching out to a potential vendor. And this, again, coming back to my previous point, it's critical to have your content across every channel your customer is and your prospects are. So the net of this is that digital disruption is really forcing companies to transform how they do business. And with this, I would love to jump right into the framework. So it's a 5-step framework, and it's based on best practices. And the first and most important thing is to have a top-down customer-centric vision. And why this is critical is that you need to have a very strong sponsor that owns that customer lens. It's not just about internal KPIs around productivity and efficiency. Absolutely, they are important. But what's even more critical is to really understand the customer perspective. And when you have a strong sponsor that owns that customer lens, it really, really helps with aligning individual departmental priorities. So if you have an initiative that's launched by, let's say, the commerce team or the marketing team or the sales team, there's only so much they can do because they will hit a wall, because you're going to have to ask other functional departments to come in and support you if you want to do a very comprehensive initiative. But when you have a sponsor that kind of sits in the C-suite and is very senior and really owns that customer lens, you can really transcend these functional divides, functional departmental divides. And the fact, building a SWAT team is a very interesting concept that's been used for many, many years now by some of the most progressive companies like Google, and it works very well in traditional companies as well as companies that have a lot of people or very large organizations. And basically, you select the brightest and the most innovative people from different functional departments, and you bring them together and you empower them to challenge the status quo, and you remove the red tape for them, and then magic happens. And this happens time and time again. So it's always a good idea, to focus or even consider building a SWAT team that kind of does things a little bit differently. Now, transforming your business is not a program or a set of projects, even though you definitely need projects and you need programs. But more important, it's a mindset change to really fully align your business around the customer, around like what do you sell, how you sell it, how you engage, where you engage. How do you nurture the relationship? How do you evolve working relationships with your suppliers and the channel ecosystem? So this is the most critical thing when it comes to transformation. Moving on to number 2. So using digital to power innovation and really, really embracing omnichannel. In today's world, users define their own buying journey. The days of having a sales funnel where a lot of people on top and then a little few kind of come out at the bottom, those days are a little bit over due to digital technologies. Because, somebody could be using their mobile when they're in the discovery mode. They could be using communities or social media, when they're evangelizing. They could be using your website to make a purchase. So it's really critical to kind of have a consistent experience across every channel. And within this context, probably the most important thing is in the moment planning for extreme levels of personalization. And what this means is that, as an example, I get about north of 200 emails a day, of which maybe I click into 1 or 2. So it's noise. It's all noise. And if I do click into one email and it's something that's not relevant to me, I'm never going to click in to another email that's sent by that organization. These are just simple facts that we live with. So what's important here is to really, really plan for personalization. And I think B2B companies are in a really, really good place when it comes to personalization because they're sitting on a pot of gold of data. So, what customers are buying, when they're buying it, what the budget thresholds are, how they're using the equipment as an example. So this data can really, really help personalize the experience. And every single time you touch your customer, it should be relevant and contextual. Unlocking omnichannel access to product info, to educational content, and the ability to purchase on the fly. Having the buy button, across all your touch points is absolutely critical. But also as critical is having your content, because people are researching across every channel. So it's really critical to kind of have your content and the ability to purchase across whether it's your website, whether it's your app, whether it's an email blast, whether it's somebody calling into customer service, it needs to be a consistent experience. Enabling self-service with guided selling. And I would really like to focus on the guided selling part here. Because, for example, telcos, I was never comfortable buying a cell phone and signing up for a plan online. I just wanted to walk into a store. I wanted the salesperson to convince me, yeah, this is the best plan for you. This is the best phone. And what happened is that the telcos have done an absolutely fantastic job at guided selling, the guided experience. Very clean. You go online, you pick your phone, you pick your plan, you pick your add-on services, you add some insurance at the end, and you're done. So I think this is a great example how if you were going to offer self-service, sometimes users don't know what they don't know. So it's really important to have that guided selling component to it. And anticipating what your customers need to really intelligently upsell and cross-sell. Again, this is where B2B companies are really kind of ahead of B2C because you're sitting on so much data on the customer that you can really, really customize and make whatever you upsell and cross-sell value-driven. So it's actually a value add to them. And it's not like just you're trying to sell something to them. And enabling bundling of your traditional products with add-on services. So bundling is an absolutely fantastic monetization tool. And what's critical when you talk about bundling is to make sure that it's within a single transaction or within one experience. So for example, if I go to a manufacturer's site or a brand site and I buy a product, and when I want to add an add-on service to it, they're going to send me to a different portal. The stats say that more than 50% of the people will drop off. So again, make the experience extremely smooth and not broken because that's just never good. So again, monetization tool, bundling is probably one of your best friends. Now, point number 3 in the framework. Data is probably the life force behind every innovation. And what's interesting is if you stare at large amounts of data all day, it's not really going to do anything for you. What's critical is to always start with your business hypotheses and then validate whether that makes sense or doesn't make sense with data, and you course correct based on data. So it's all about the little data that you're looking for within this big data set that's going to really help you innovate within your space. And what's the end goal is to really understand what your customers prioritize and what they care about. And when we talk about data, there's different types of data, right? So you've got your explicit data, so somebody's bought something, they've registered, they've completed a form, and then you've got your implicit data, where somebody just clicked through, they browsed, they hovered, they walked by. Now you're listening for all this data from all these channels at the bottom, taking in all this data, normalizing it, making it relevant, and then when you engage across all these channels, you leverage this data because the implicit data is the data that really paints, it's the color commentary. It kind of tells you the real picture of what's happening. And how that actually might happen is, for example, if you have a customer that's on your website right now, and they're an existing customer, so you know what they've done in the past, you can very easily predict what they may do in the future and in real time individualize the experience and present relevant content to them across all of your touch points, whether it's your web properties, it's an email blast, in your banner ads, or even in your apps. And again, this is not fairy tale. These are tools that our customers are using every day to really make their engagement personalized. And also what's important is, when You start from a prospect, and then you have a customer, and then as that relationship continues, you're constantly enhancing those profiles. So today you might know very little, but tomorrow and the day after and year after year, you can really enhance that profile to really understand what their preferences are. And this is how you can really personalize the experiences on a continuous basis. Number 4, and this is really, really important too, because it's really important to focus on the end-to-end transformation. If you focus on technology itself, it can only take you so far. What's also very important is your business processes that sit behind the technology and the change management that sits behind the technology. And so, for an example, you can have a fantastic transactional website with a great social media strategy, but if you have something negative trending on Twitter or LinkedIn, and it takes you 2 days to respond to it, well, technology is not going to really help you there. So it's really critical to look at everything very holistically and make sure that your business processes support the technology that you're investing in. And again, making sure that there's business process harmonization and transformation runs deep, front to end, and back to front and front to back. For example, if there's a data project in your organization, and now you have the ability to access a little bit more data because of that, it would be absolutely fantastic if you could bubble some of that data up into your self-service experience. Again, how does that happen? That happens when your organization is connected front to back to front. And now I wanted to go into the last section here, using best practices from adjacent industries. And I would like to give you an example from Thomas Edison, running away from the box. So Thomas Edison, when he started building his team of innovators in Menlo Park, he had an African-American engineer, a Swiss watchmaker, and everyone that would be a part of his team, he would interview them with 150 questions. And the 150 questions were not only on their area of expertise, but also on philosophy and literature and Shakespeare, because he understood that that light bulb moment does happen, but what happens more often is that you have ideas all over the place that you bring in and you combine to come up and satisfy a specific goal. And I think that's absolutely very important also within our business. So for example, encourage recurring revenue relationships. So if we talked about subscriptions, it's the holy grail of monetization, right? You have a predictive revenue stream, and you have data that's flowing back that will continuously help you better understand the customer, so you can create that long-lasting relationship. Well, telcos have done a fantastic job with this. So they have subscriptions with all these different options, right? You have prepaid, you have postpaid plans. If you take gaming and media, about 2-3 years, I worked for a gaming company that then got bought out by PlayStation Now. And we were really surprised when The World of Tanks was a game. The World of Tanks came out, and they were the first game company that offered their game for free. Now, this was a game that was a multi-million-dollar investment, and they gave it away for free in return for people coming, joining, and then using microtransactions to make purchases. And everybody was surprised in the industry. And what ended up, the end result was that the CLV, or the customer lifetime value of a customer that gets a free game and then uses microtransactions to get to boost or speed up their progress from stage to stage, was about 30 to 40% more than a gamer that bought the game outright. Unbelievable innovation. They tried it, they tested it. So what can you give away for free in return for a recurring revenue relationship? High tech, again, large companies like Medtronic, they have entered into the SMB space by giving their machines away for free or at a discounted price in return for a relationship. It could be based on revenue share, it could be based on subscriptions which are frequency-based or usage-based. So again, there's a lot of innovation that's been tested across different industries that can be leveraged within the B2B space in a very big way. And again, the net of this section is that you need to align your product, service, and solution portfolio with what your customer preferences are. For telcos, it's tiered pricing, it's a la carte pricing, it's international roaming. For media, you just buy cable, or you can get a triple play. For high tech, I just talked about multiple options that you can engage with your prospect base and your customer base. So again, I would like to end my presentation with just really stressing that don't lose sight of the forest or that big vision of how important your customer is as you focus on individual projects or individual trees. Because every project that you do should chip away at a larger vision of transformation, because the world is changing because of digital. And it's really critical to kind of stay abreast. So with that, I would like to pass this back to Megan. Megan, back to you.
Thank you, Dean. You really shed some great information there for us. So I'm going to pass over to our next panelist. This is going to be Nick Fazio. He is the IT director at Sonny's Direct. Nick.
Hi, everyone. So, as she said, my name is Nick Fazio. I am the IT director at Sonny's Enterprises, and I was the project manager assigned to our Hybris project from platform selection all the way through implementation and go live. I'll give you a quick intro on the company and then dive into how we're using it to, or how we're using Hybris to leverage all of our knowledge that we have internally and access or as our new e-commerce platform. Okay, there we go. So our company was founded in 1949. We started with washing cars ourselves. We had some our own car washes. Then we went into replacement parts, and then eventually transformed into just a full-blown equipment manufacturer. Now we've transformed to be an end-to-end provider for our customers. So we start with them from the moment they find an address they think will be a good car wash site. We do assessments for them. We then go through potential layouts of the site down to then the equipment layout, including plumbing and electrical work as well. So we try to do everything we can and provide all the tools possible to make our customers successful, so they're not just building a single car wash, but their own little franchise. We do that through our 4 different parts of the business. We're broken into 4 divisions: our car wash college, our replacement parts, our equipment, and our control sector. So the college is really one of our biggest selling points, because we take new investors and current car wash people alike, and we bring them into our factory and put them through our courses. We do a seminar for new investors so they really know what the industry is, potential ROI, and they get a real feel for what they might be stepping into. And then for existing owners, we'll take them through training from repair to maintenance, management, some of the controls training, and if they have multiple sites, we give them some management tips on that as well. Now we're using all this through our SAP implementations. So we started with ERP in 2012, then we brought in SAP CRM and their web platform at the time, WCEM, in 2013. And then we're now running off of Hybris for our e-commerce platform, and we're using Business Objects as well. So we were running WCEM provided by SAP at the time, and we realized that we needed to change platforms. While at the time it was running relatively well, we knew that there were shortcomings with it, and we had to decide whether we wanted to invest more into that platform or switch to SAP's latest and greatest Hybris. So when they announced that acquisition, we started to really dive into what we needed to do to take our company forward on the web. Now, some of the biggest pain points that we saw that Hybris was going to address was our site wasn't responsive. The search didn't really give us any controls on how to control it, and we couldn't combine our product searching with our content searching. So if somebody was looking for educational pieces on a certain product, they would only find that product in our catalog. They couldn't get to any of the knowledge-based information. And the CMS in WCM was a third-party one, and it was very rigid. So any changes had to go through the third party, and so our response time was a lot slower than it would be with Hybris. And when it was all said and done, when SAP announced that they would be discontinuing support there, we knew Hybris was the way to go, because we didn't want it to be with the latest and greatest and stick with the full SAP suite. So we then went and decided that we wanted to integrate it using the Data Hub. Since it was going to be the official integration piece, we knew it would continue to be supported and give us the best bet to get all of our SAP data over to Hybris. we wanted SAP ERP to be our single source of truth for everything possible. So all of our customer information, item information, pricing, discounts, down to like our freight calculations are being driven from ERP and then presented to the customer through Hybris. And the main goal was to deliver a better customer experience. That was a big pain point for us, and our competitors had websites that were much more user-friendly and easier to use. So with a key piece being here is the responsive design. Once we decided on Hybris, we had to make sure that the version we were using was responsive, and then we would be gaining all the other tools there. So we'd also be getting the Solar search, so we can now integrate our article search with our items for both sellable and non-sellable catalogs. Hybris CMS gives our marketing team the ability to make changes a lot more quickly and easily, so they can get any kind of promotions up as soon as they want them to be. And for our customers, they get to see the information that's relevant to them as soon as they log in. So when they get to a product detail page, they see their discounts, their pricing live as soon as they go to those pages. The freight they see is the actual freight they'll be charged. So even if they were to place one order on the web or call one in, they get the same pricing, same discounts, same freight charges. It would all be the same experience that they have control. And now we're started building out the self-service pieces of it. So they have the order history on Hybris, so they can track and manage their orders, and we'll be bringing to them invoice tracking as well, so they can have complete control over their history interacting with Sonny's. And for our internal teams, going with Hybris was a lot better choice for us because we have only 2 full-time SAP employees here, and so we couldn't go with a solution that was going to be really intensive work for them to get it all integrated. So working with Zaylabs and using Data Hub really reduced the workload that was going to be put onto our SAP team, and it was going to be a less risky option going forward. Let's get one. So for the partner selection, this took, I think, longer than the actual implementation did. We started with, when we narrowed down to our first pool, we had 4 people that we went through extensive questioning and back and forth and trying to get a feel for how their company worked and how they would handle the implementation. And what we realized was we didn't know what we wanted. So we aren't e-commerce professionals, and with our last implementation, it was really just focused on making it work with SAP. At this point, we realized that we wanted someone who was an e-commerce expert first and SAP implementator second. So that then narrowed down our focus to 2 different companies. And we really decided on Zaylab because we felt that they provided the most expertise on the e-commerce side, and also we liked their method of implementation better than the competitors. So with Zaylab, they used the agile methodology, so it's continuous delivery in short sprints. We didn't want to go through a 4-week design and definition phase because, again, we didn't know what we wanted, so we didn't want to go through making decisions ahead of time that we then would regret once we actually see it come to life. So with Zaylab's methodology, we were able to go piece by piece and define what we wanted, see it come to life, and make changes on the fly as we progress through the project. We'll get into the implementation steps next, but the whole time the project was focused on the user experience. So every decision we made throughout time of the implementation was to give the user the best experience at the end, make the site user-friendly, and deliver them information and access to both articles and products in the most seamless way possible. Instead of bringing the Hybris servers on premises like the rest of our SAP platforms, we decided to go with Amazon Web Services. It made a lot more sense for the Hybris piece, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then the time to market. Zaylab's implementation time was significantly less than other companies, whether that was due to the agile methodology or just their expertise. They'd have to really go into that, but it worked for us. So a quick overview of the implementation process. We started with customer experience. We Zaylabs went out and talked to some of our customers and some of the new investors that we had identified to get a feel for who is going to be using our site, what they're going to be looking for, and how we should best go about laying that out for them. Then we went into the actual implementation, and as you can see, there's a few different pieces that we integrated with Hybris, and we'll get into that as well. And then once it came to launch, we made our time frame, but then reevaluated what we wanted and actually added scope. And so what we got at the end was a much more complete product than we originally thought. Let's go into that. So Zaylabs went out, talked to some of our car wash owners, some new investors, and some of our distributors to see what they didn't like about our current website, what they liked about our competitors' websites, what they want to see and how they want to use it. Do they use it from their phones mainly, from tablets, from their computers? They try to gather all the information possible to then be able to build out the website that's going to meet their needs. So we took that information and mapped 3 different personas and then used those personas to lay out the user experience. A big piece of that, as I mentioned before, was making it responsive. It turned out a lot of our clients were using their phones to access our data and would either put off or just forget to put in orders online because the user experience on their phone currently was just terrible. So we then revert back to our phone system. We wanted to get away from that and drive all of it to the site. In our old site, while it had a ton of content on it, it lacked a clear direction and layout for the people to get to it. So the biggest part of our project was how we're going to clean up the data, migrate it to the new site, and lay it out in a way that's easy to find. And this also ties into that enhanced search. So now if you want to find one of our items, like say our top brush, you can find the actual piece of equipment, the top brush, you can find replacement parts for that top brush, and you can find any articles or blog posts related to the top brush, all within the same search. So again, we implemented Hybris in an agile manner in Amazon Cloud. So we did this in short 3-week sprints, and after each sprint, Zaylabs will come down, they would meet with us, go over what the work they've done, get input from our team, make sure it was what we wanted or any changes that need to be made in the next sprint, and then move forward with the project. It's fully integrated with SAP ERP. We originally were going to go with a fully asynchronous implementation, but because of some of the way we wanted to have our discounts appear on the fly, we ended up doing part asynchronous, part synchronous. So all discounts and freight data is coming live from our SAP system as soon as the user gets to the pages relevant to that data. We chose the Amazon cloud because of the scalability, security, and elasticity there. We knew that if the site really takes off like we hope it will, we're going to need to give it more resources and just give us the best option to be able to do that. We used our existing Marketo tools and implement that into the Hybris. We're using it for collecting lead forms, any information requests, class registrations, and then segmentation down the line. So that way we can give a more personalized view of our site when people log in. We've integrated also with Paymetric for credit card payments. They can do tokenization and pre-auth directly from the site. We use our Process Weaver through our ERP system, so that way all the freight calculations that the user is seeing are live and exact, so they don't have to either call in for freight or get just an estimate, which we had to do in the past with our previous WCM implementation. They can now see exactly what they're going to be paying. And we're now in the process of implementing question and answers and ratings and reviews with Turn2, so that way we can get more user-generated content on the site to help with our SEO. So we had started the implementation at the end of November or beginning of December in 2015, and we originally were looking at 6 months. Now we have on here that the site launched in September, but that wasn't because of a delay in the implementation. We actually were ready to go at the end of May, but we decided to add to that launch scope to make sure that we really had all the key elements in there that we felt would generate this user experience we were looking for. So then we added those pieces in and relaunched. So we did have a soft launch in May, but we relaunched to everybody in September. And since then, we've had an increase in order value, orders per day, total revenue from the site, and just feedback from our customers have been a lot better. Now, we've been able to do this through some of the different controls that have come through these integrations with our ERP system. So, for example, we have full controls over any kind of promotions that we want to do, and we actually did that. So we launched in September. We made sure everything was stable throughout that month, and we went heavy with a free shipping promotion in October. And so lost control. So these are the numbers that we saw through our free shipping promotion and those numbers have stayed relatively steady after that. So through November, and I haven't seen the final numbers yet for December, but you can see that with our new platform, and without even having the free shipping enabled anymore, user acceptance of the site has been a lot higher than we anticipated, and just general user feedback has been really positive as well. I think that's all I've got.
Great.
Back to you, Megan.
Thank you, Nick. Our next and final panelist is going to be Evan Klein, and he is the CEO of Zaylab.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Evan Klein. I'm the CEO of Zaylab. We're a digital commerce consultancy based out of Connecticut. It was an absolute pleasure to partner with Sonny's and SAP on this opportunity to really help transform their digital experience, for a very interesting business. And it was very exciting. So just a quick introduction of Zaylab. As I mentioned, we're a digital commerce consultancy. We really focus on, 4 things, which is commerce consulting, making sure customers do the right thing, pick the right technologies, make the right strategic decisions, commerce experiences, which Nick spoke about, delivering a seamless experience to B2B customers, as well as platforms, all the implementation, integration, and the operations. And we do this through a continuous delivery methodology, which we're going to share a little more about. It's central to the way we work and how we get to market fast and help customers get ahead of their competitors. So really quickly, I think Nick and Dean have done a great job Dean did a great job of speaking about the technology, and Nick did a great job talking through the, process we went through to help drive revenue growth and operational efficiency at their company. But as I mentioned, central to that is really what we like to call continuous delivery. And as we say, it's part process, part technology, and part mindset. And if you look at companies out there like Amazon.com, that's famous for doing up to 13 changes every second, continuously adapting their website, based upon how customers are truly using their site. For customers, what it means is that they need to be able to be more nimble, more agile, and they need to be able to stay ahead of that, ahead of their customers. So as part of our continuous delivery approach, we really begin with the customer experience and work backwards. Okay. And, some firms out there, as Nick mentioned, what we're not fans of is doing design phases for 6 to 8 weeks where we lay out, hundreds of pages of documents that, will end up by the time those documents are finished, the business has already changed. And so what we do is we really focus on the customer experience and work backwards. So what we did with Sonny's as part of our continuous delivery approach is we spoke to customers. We understood all of the different personas. We understood what was important to them, and we started defining what is the ideal customer experience, as Dean mentioned, working from the top down. Okay. We presented that to Sonny's, and then what we did is we said, all right, if this is the desired customer experience, and then we enable our technology teams with that and say, hey, how are we going to get this data out of SAP? How are we going to integrate this? And what happens is our customer experience becomes the central set of requirements, which is able to get a broad team on the same page and on the page very quickly, as opposed to looking through detailed functional design documents. So we think that's a competitive advantage, and it helps people move faster, make better decisions, and ultimately get to market substantially quicker. From there, we, as Nick mentioned, we're very big proponents of using the cloud. Okay, so we, built into our methodology a strong release management. So we're doing multiple releases a day. And what this does is this is getting all the latest and greatest functionality out to Sonny's during the implementation phase. This is important because the team is able to see, they're able to use, not talk about, and they're able to see things as they're ready. We were able to launch in 6 months with Sonny's, and I think we've been much more aggressive with other customers. And through very rapid release management, automated testing, we get releases to customers and we get it to them very quickly so that they can validate and we could very quickly make changes on the fly. And finally, post implementation, that continuous delivery, we're working with Sonny's now still very closely, doing releases as frequently, very frequently, and this continuous delivery process continues to persist, and we're continuously adding new capabilities. We're then using data to understand how customers are actually using that functionality, and we're making much more data-driven decisions about where we place investments and what we invest in terms of features and functionality, so that Sonny's can be sure that when they decide to invest money into features, they're getting some economic value out of that. And so, ultimately, the continuous delivery methodology is really focused around being customer experience led, being data driven about what you're going to invest into, and being able to get new features and functionality to market very quickly to stay ahead of their competitors, which I think Sonny's has done a great job of. And one thing I want to mention is, as Dean and Nick alluded to, one of the things we've been prototyping here with Sonny's over the last couple of months, and this is really because SAP Hybris is truly an omni-channel platform. And when you talk channel agnostic, I think this is a great illustration of the vision that Sonny's has. And we call this the smart car wash. And we've been working with Sonny's on it. And basically, if you think about somebody that is an entrepreneur and owns car washes, today they constantly have to reorder maintenance parts or reorder the chemicals that go in their car wash. And this is not productive to the business. Somebody has to go sit, they have to order from a computer, and that's just wasted time. And so what we've been prototyping with Sonny's here, and I think the next step in their vision is really about what we call the smart car wash, which is enabling the car washes with smart devices that automatically go out and reorder from Hybris, okay? And, what this does is this drives efficiency for, people that own car washes, which is central to Sonny's vision. But more importantly, it's going to drive more recurring revenue to Sonny's. And so, people don't even have to think about it. It's like the Amazon Prime buttons. And really all of this is enabled because SAP Hybris is truly an omni-channel platform. It provides the API capabilities to hook up any device or any channel and really meet your customer where they are. And I think this concept really illustrates that power. And it's a very exciting concept from an Internet of Things standpoint. So we look forward to, now that we have the base platform in with Sonny's, we very much look forward to not having to worry about the bells and whistles, or the commodity type of basic features, and we focus on innovation now with them, and that's really exciting, and that's where the value of Hybris starts to shine. And that's all I had. We're going to move it over now to question and answers, and we'll go ahead and share. So we've got a number of different questions, and I could help moderate these questions. It is so the first question is, will we get a copy of this presentation to share with my peers? And the answer is absolutely. Megan and I will work here to share this with the team here, and we'll go ahead and send that out to all the participants. I'm pretty sure we could send an email out after. Okay. There's another question here, which is why was AWS used and not Hybris Commerce Cloud? This is a really great question. There was a preference here just for the AWS from Sonny's had some existing AWS infrastructure, so there was no purpose. Both Zaylab and oops, let me go back. Both Zaylab we work very closely with customers that are using both the Hybris Cloud and AWS Cloud, and we think they're both very good options. The other thing too, at the time when Sonny's first started their implementation, there's been some substantial updates to the Hybris Cloud, so I think that was part of their decision making here. And I have another question here. Transitioning from one e-commerce platform can be daunting, especially when people have large product catalogs. and requirements. How did you mitigate this risk? Great question. So the question is, how did you mitigate this risk with such a large, complex product catalog and unique requirements? And I think the answer to this question really comes back to our continuous delivery approach. So, we realize in these types of projects, trying to answer all the questions and basically, figure out what the end game looks like is very hard. It's hard to jump from point A all the way to point B. And so what we do is this is really where the continuous delivery process comes into play. And so, what we're doing is we're not focusing on what the actual end state looks like. We're focused on what we call an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, which is, hey, this is what we need to get to market to transact revenue and show a return on the investment. And so through the continuous delivery, through breaking things down into smaller chunks, into 2 to 3 week iterations, we're able to mitigate risk as well as provide kind of quick, rapid updates to the customer. Okay. There's another question here, which is can you talk a little bit about the integration, the challenges, or were there any challenges around integration from SAP Hybris to SAP ECC? And Nick, I'll let you take that question if you don't mind. Can you talk a little bit about the integration piece and kind of your perspective there?
Yeah. I guess one thing that we learned going through it was that we should have focused more on that as we got more into the project, because once it came time to really look at all the integration pieces, the way we have ERP set up, I'm sure everybody has it set up in their own way, so that they're using discount structures differently or pricing groups differently, and so that was something that we had challenge with, and that was where we had to revisit how we wanted to do the integration. So I had mentioned that we wanted to do everything asynchronous, so that we weren't relying on our ERP system always being up for people to do or conduct transactions on Hybris. But I mean, if our ERP system's down, I think we have bigger issues than just worrying about the website. And so as we looked at the way that we were using ERP and some of the complex discount structures and tax structures and shipping that we had in there, we realized that we had to change to a synchronous method for a lot of the data. And so we ended up actually doing a call to ERP for some of that. So we were able to simulate transactions to make sure that the website or the information we were going to be presenting on Hybris would match up with how we would enter that same order into our ERP system. So that way all the discounts would be correct, all the tax would be correct. And it became, I want to say more complicated, but a lot more, what's the word here? It became a lot more dependent on having that live connection available. So yeah, it's definitely something that you want to lay out and really discuss as you go through implementations, to say, here's how we use ERP in a not so standard way that's going to affect how the implementation is going to end up laying out.
Great, thanks, Nick. We just had another question come in for Nick, and the question is, before the project started, how did you determine if the project was considered a success? Did you set any targets, and how did you gauge those targets?
Before it started?
Yep.
Well, once we picked Zay Labs and started going through laying out the first phases and how they were going to start gathering information to lay out the user experience, they took us down a path that we never really considered or heard from other partners. So once they just said, hey, we're not going to do anything until we talk to, I forget how many customers or new investors that you guys can provide us with, because that's what's going to drive the way your site's laid out. And so once that happened, and then they gave us their first layouts of, say, our homepage and 1 or 2 content pages, we saw that their vision and the way they were conducting their implementation was going to give us what we're looking for. So if you were to go to our site now, you would see a pretty clear divide of, if you want to shop, you click here, and if you want to learn anything, you click here. Whereas before, that was a mess for our users. So just seeing that from, I think it was the first sprint, showed us that we were going down a path that was going to make using our website a much more pleasant experience for our customers. And anything after that was just going to be like icing on the cake.
Yeah, and Nick, I'll add to that if it's okay. I think, one of the things we do, as Nick pointed out, is we look at analytics benchmarks data before the site launches and then after the site launches. And so I think from a customer experience standpoint, there's certainly metrics behind that says, hey, with the new customer experience, there's more page views, there's more engagement on the site, people are on the site for longer. So there was some metrics from a customer experience standpoint. When we began with Sonny's, the ask from Nick and Paul and the team was, we want a customer experience that represents our business. And if you learn more about the Sonny's business, there's a deep connection with the customers. And so taking that relationship with the customers and translating that to a digital experience, while it was a very qualitative ask and goal, it was very clear to us, and we've used analytics and KPIs to support that. And I think the revenue certainly shows we've achieved success. So I think that's a really good question.
And it looks like we have a question that came in for Dean. So, is Hybris Commerce only a B2B commerce platform for large companies? Can you touch on this a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So no, it's not. Let me give you a little bit of history about Hybris itself. So Hybris was a bleeding edge startup company that was acquired by SAP in 2013. And a lot of the basic concepts that have gone into the technology platform are very specific to every type of company, from your SMB to mid-size to large enterprise. And I think that was probably one of the biggest reasons why we were actually considered the leader in the commerce space. And it's not just B2B large organizations. What's unique about the SAP Hybris platform for commerce is that it's one platform for B2B and B2C. And because we've been such a leader in the retail and CP space, we've brought a lot of those best practices into the B2B side of the business too. So again, one platform for B2B and B2C that is it's an open platform, extremely flexible, API driven. I think Evan had just mentioned that. So to your point, no, it's absolutely for small to mid-sized companies as well as large enterprise.
I mean, just to speak on that, at Sonny's, I think we're still considered a small business. So this is, our 2016 will be the first year that we're breaking 100 million in revenue. So we're not exactly a huge company ourselves.
Thanks for that, Nick. So I have a question, if I may, Megan. I have a question for Evan and from Nick. So it's really interesting. I'm really amazed by this continuous delivery concept. So did you embed some of the business folks from Sony into your IPMs and your iteration planning meetings, or how did that work? Or was it on an ongoing basis, kind of in an embedded fashion, or?
Yeah, they were involved in those. Say every 3 weeks we did the sprint reviews. So we would bring in key players from our equipment teams, parts teams, controls team. Pretty much all the mid-level management group would come in, sit in there, and then give feedback for what they were seeing and how they would envision it working best going forward. But then, admittedly, though, that became somewhat of a problem because we ended up having too many people at the table with too many different visions, and it got to a point where we were losing track of recommendations coming from the company we hired as the e-commerce experts. So we see that happen with our own industry, where someone will open a single car wash, ask us questions or ask us for advice, and then go against the advice and see it backfire. And so we had to take a step back and say, hey, look, we're doing exactly what we see our customers do, where we ask the experts for advice, then we go and think we know better because 2 or 3 people in a room of 12 may have the same opinion. So we had to trim down the team a bit towards the end to make sure that we were staying on a singular focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great, thanks, Nick, for sharing that. That was a great lesson learned for us. Dean, to answer your original question, I think that's the value in the customer experience led approach and continuous delivery was we had engagement from the business, from day one, and they were seeing and feeling and actually understanding, what this thing was going to look like. As opposed to the other way that other companies do things, which is, really putting together long, detailed requirement documents, which, let's face it, nobody reads and they end up in the garbage or on someone's desk months later. We were able to get the business very involved. Now, Nick just brought up a good point. What we realized and one of the lessons learned from this project for all of us was, I think when we started the initial sprint reviews and iteration planning meetings, we had almost 20 to 25 people in the room. And what we did over time was, and since we're, doing continuous delivery and we're constantly doing retrospectives, one of the things we learned very early on in the process was, look, let's pare this down to kind of a key, individual from each, area of the business. And so once we were able to pare down the team a little bit, we were able to get just more concise feedback, but still getting representation from the entire business and still including them all in the process. But the smaller team certainly helped as opposed to, a very large 20, 25 person team.
Well, thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you, Nick and Evan. That's great.
Okay, so it looks like we are just about running out of time. So thank you everyone for attending. We had a really great turnout for this, and I would like to extend a special thank you to our 3 panelists. You really gave some great insights today. So we will definitely have this webinar recorded and posted and sent out soon. Thank you again.